It is a little bit strange. So why people made so many drawings concerning the Utsurobune? It is a mystery.
These strange drawings caused experts like Tanaka to wonder if Japan, which had been completely closed to foreigners and outside influences until 1857, experienced a mass UFO sighting at around this time.
The Utsurobune folklore in Japan has a key to solve the mystery of the modern UFOs, I think.
The mysteries of the sea pervade Japanese culture and history. Stories and legends surrounding UFO activity in the Dragon's Triangle have been around for centuries. On the 24th of September 1235, strange celestial lights were seen to move and hover over General Yoritsume's army encampment in Kyoto. This terrified the troops, who thought the objects were dragons from the sea coming to attack them. "40 years later, two large-scale catastrophic events in the Dragon's Triangle would change world history and give its deep waters a deadly reputation.
The Devil's Triangle, which has accumulated a certain amount of lore in modern times, and this clearly, to some extent at least, reflects old Japanese traditions having to do with the sea, with dangers in the sea, with supernatural or even divine beings who live in the sea, who can both protect and also attack those who earn their livelihood from the sea, fishermen and so on.
In 1274, the Mongol Emperor Kublai Khan assembled a massive force of over 900 ships to conquer the one territory he coveted, Japan. His victory was assured until a single catastrophic event in the triangle stopped his massive armada in its tracks.
Mongolia was governing maybe half of Europe and all over Asia, and they tried to invade Japan as well. A typhoon came and all of the ships were sunk, and they couldn't reach Japan.
And they brought about 40,000 troops in 1274 to Japan. More than half of that fleet was sunk in this storm, and so the Mongols' first invasion ended up as a major disaster. You know, some 20,000 Mongols were killed in that instance or lost their lives.
The Khan planned another, bigger invasion of Japan in 1281. This time he brought 140,000 men and 3,000 ships. But the second attack had the same disastrous outcome. An estimated 70,000 Mongol troops were lost, along with the majority of the ships.
The second great effort to invade Japan was once again defeated by the arrival of a propitious wind, as the Japanese like to call it. And this created the notion of the divine wind.
At the time of the Mongolian invasion, it is believed that the wind saved Japan.
Experts and historians still ponder whether these events in this mysterious zone were the result of divine winds from benevolent gods, a lucky meteorological occurrence, or possibly something else.
The fact that nature intervened on two separate occasions, I don't know, it did put a little bit of folklore into Japanese history as far as heavenly intervention protecting Japan.
Because Japan was almost completely closed to foreigners for much of its history, experts fear that a rich source of UFO knowledge about the triangle has been lost forever. It was not until the late 19th century that reports became more frequent. An American official who helped open Japan's doors to the West was personally involved in an unsolved mystery involving possible UFOs in the Dragon's Triangle. The 8th of July, 1853, 4 a.m. Commodore Matthew C. Perry was off the coast of Ulaga in Tokyo Bay. Suddenly, an unusual object appeared in the sky. Perry recorded the encounter in his log. During the watch from midnight to 4 a.m., a very remarkable meteor was seen. It made its appearance in the south and west and illuminated the whole atmosphere. The spars, sails and hulls of the ships in company, as well as our own, reflected its glare as distinctly as though a blue light were burning from each at the same time. From the south and west, about 15 degrees above the horizon, it pursued a northeasterly course in a direct line for a long distance, when it fell gradually toward the sea and disappeared. What followed was a vivid description of something that did not resemble a meteor. It was far more ominous. Its shape was that of a large blue sphere with a red wedge-shaped tail, which, it could easily be observed, was formed of ignited particles and resembled the sparks of a rocket as they appear upon explosion. UFO researchers in Japan are convinced that Commodore Perry, during one of the most important voyages west by an American, witnessed a UFO in the heart of the Dragon's Triangle.
There was a report of sightings of a UFO when the American leadership approached the Japanese government to open commerce. While his ship was floating at the Uraga, Perry wrote the report in his navigation diary. Others witnessed this sighting as well.
Perry continued to search for clues and answers, but he died 5 years later in 1858 without further insight into the events of that night.
This is where two big dragons are hiding themselves from 3,000 years ago. This area is called the Devil's Sea, and many ships have disappeared without good reason. Let's find out the biggest and strongest mystery of the 20th century, the Dragon's Triangle.
What we have seen is that in Japan and in the Ring of Fire, that before and after increased seismic activity or increased volcanic activity, there'll be a lot of sightings of these UFOs.
Deep beneath the Dragon's Triangle lies one of the most seismically active regions on the planet. Enormous tectonic plates shift constantly underwater, and suboceanic volcanic eruptions are frequent. This activity could be responsible for the region's significant shipping losses and dramatic death toll.
Back in the States, we receive message traffic on a regular basis that tells us volcano warning alerts. So not only do we know where they are, we have them plotted on our charts. If I go down and check my email right now, I have about 8 or 10 messages from these guys telling us that there's a volcano here that has shown some sort of seismic activity, and your best bet is to steer clear.
When you get an underwater eruption, depending on how deep it is, if it's pretty deep, you'll just get lava flows coming out, but if it's closer to the surface, you'll get actual gas in the magma that forms bubbles, and it's an explosive eruption.
Dr. Stock is professor of geology and geophysics at Caltech University in Pasadena, California.
One of the Mariana Islands, which was erupting in 2003, it had these eruptions that were on the island itself, and people could see that there's pulses of gas coming out. It actually has more than 80 little vents that are offshore that are also active. If one of those was erupting, you know, you might see the peak of the volcano on the island. It doesn't look like anything's happening, but something could be erupting underwater where your ship is sailing near it and could be affected or could sink because too much gas is in the water.
The gases released by underwater volcanoes can wreak havoc with ships, even huge container and cargo ships.
If you happen to get a gas bubble, you know, a big gas bubble that came out of a vent that was underwater, if your ship was right on top of that gas bubble, you would sink because you wouldn't have enough buoyancy to keep your ship floating.
The ring of fire that lies beneath the Dragon's Triangle is filled with dangerous volcanoes at various depths.
The shallowest ones are these islands above sea level, and then they go on down, 10,000 feet.
But why is there so much volcanic activity surrounding Japan and this area?
It may come as a surprise to some people to realize that the majority of the volcanism on the planet Earth is happening on the seafloor.
Most of the Pacific Ocean floor is moving from east to west, and as the seafloor is dragged down into the interior of the Earth, this water reacts with hot rock and makes volcanoes.
Volcanoes along the Marianas, which are erupting as a result of this plate collision, can toss aerosols and particulate matter all the way up to the stratosphere, and obviously if a plane flew into that, it might clog the engines.
Another dangerous feature of the Dragon's Triangle are the so-called triangle waves. These bizarre oceanic enigma are swift and deadly and impossible to predict.
There are big waves, 7, 8, 9 feet high, crashing in from different directions. This creates huge waves up to 65 feet high. This is the most dangerous thing that I have ever seen.
Japan is located where there are seasonal big winds. In the wintertime, there tends to be a lot of bad weather and turbulence. Winds from different directions create the triangle waves.
The term triangular wave, sankakunami in Japanese, is a name used by Japanese people from the past. What it represents from a scientific point of view is not known.
Dr. Hiroshi Tomita, a special researcher at Japan's National Maritime Research Institute, and Dr. Takuji Waseda, a Tokyo University professor, performed a unique experiment for the History Channel in the world's largest wave tank. They demonstrated the destructive capabilities of the kinds of triangle waves and currents that affect this area.
A U.S. commercial ship reported that they actually saw a wave over 100 feet high, but it was measured by sight, so they don't have any scientific proof. What my team is trying to do is measure in a more scientific way.
There's 32 plungers at the end of the tank, which we control the amplitude of the phase from a computer. These tank tests are scalable. The same thing can happen in the real ocean.
Dr. Waseda explained the nature of a triangle wave.
As two waves crosses each other, the wave pattern will form a triangular shape. When a ship encounters these kind of triangular shaped wave, the ship can move in quite a different way. Sometimes it can move this way, but sometimes it can roll. Roll, for example, for a ship is extremely dangerous. The energy piles up. It is said that the amplitude can be quite high because of the crossing sea. Not being able to predict the direction of the forces is a threat for a ship.
The triangle wave phenomenon is reportedly responsible for the destruction of many ships and the high death toll in the Dragon's Triangle.
I think the scientific knowledge is very similar to the jigsaw puzzle. We have no piece that matches to the UFOs.
There are many reports of accidents, so I consider that it is a dangerous area. But we cannot define those accidents either from a volcano, natural causes, or some mysterious UFO.
For hundreds of years in the Dragon's Triangle, there have been reports of disappearances and eerie encounters with UFOs. These incidents seem to be linked to its mysterious counterpart in Bermuda. Many researchers call this zone the Pacific Bermuda Triangle.
I've seen all the reports. I believe there are many people who see it and don't talk about it.
There are some people who say, I cannot believe until I see with my own eyes. But of course, the eyes are not always reliable. We have to research from many different points of view.
Maybe there are some doors that open frequently to the different dimensions on this planet. So, in theory, maybe it's possible there are doors like that in the ocean.
Modern researchers, both for the Dragon Sea off Japan and the Bermuda Triangle off the Florida coast, have hypothesized that there's an undersea UFO base or a USO base in those waters. They're very deep, there's a lot of volcanic activity, and sometimes the magnetic readings will throw off attempts to find objects on the bottom of the surface. So there may well be a USO base in the Dragon Sea off Japan.